Now, we just mentioned that the peace talks have been called to South Africa, mediated by the African Union, although we don't know the venue yet. But the question is, what is at stake in South Africa, and what are these talks all about? And this is the moment when I turn to Paul Nantulia, who is a research specialist at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies. He is joining me via Skype from here in Washington. And Paul, I want to begin just right there. First, what is at stake in these talks as the warring parties now meet in South Africa?
Well, thank you, Vincent. It's great to be on the show once again. No, as you've mentioned, there's a lot at stake in this crisis. The first is Ethiopia is a major African power, very strategically located in the Horn of Africa, close to the Red Sea, plays a huge role in regional security efforts, including counterterrorism, including stabilization efforts in Somalia. And Ethiopia has also for many years been among the top 20 fastest growing economies, not just in Africa, but the world. Ethiopia is the seat of the African Union. Ethiopia hosts many UN agencies, including the UN Commission for Africa. Ethiopia hosts some of the security infrastructure of the African peace and security architecture. And hosts numerous diplomatic initiatives, for instance, IGAD and others. So there's a lot at stake. At stake. And for Ethiopia to be unstable is not good for the continent.
Now, many have been watching this conflict go on, and the question has been, why is it, or has it seemingly been very difficult to bring the two sides together, get into a state of peace and at least a truce that could hold?
Three reasons, Vincent. First is the severity of the conflict. This is an internal crisis and a power struggle within the TPLF, which was at the core of the ruling coalition. The ruling coalition, the coalition that ruled Ethiopia from the overthrow of Mengistu up to 2018, had a violent split within it, which also affected the military. So the severity of the conflict is a major reason as to why it has been very difficult to get all these sides to the table. I mean, Abiy himself grew up in the TPLF-led coalition. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that you've had multiple and in some cases competing and parallel peace initiatives coming from the external, from external partners. And when you have that, the protagonists in any conflict situation, they tend to play one mediator off the other. The third reason, Vincent, is that the parties do believe for the moment that they can achieve their objectives on the battlefield. And until you get to a situation where they believe that they can actually speak on the table in good faith, it will be very, very difficult to arrive at a truce.
Now, very quickly, the African Union is mediating this current talks. What is your assessment of the African Union's mechanism to resolve conflicts on the continent?
It's been a little mixed because right from the beginning, the Tigray elite and the leadership within the TPLF and the Tigray regional government have complained that the African Union was not impartial, given that the designated mediator, Olusegun Obasanjo, was seen to have legitimized the elections that took place, which were extremely controversial from the perspective of the opposition, not just Tigray, but the larger opposition in Ethiopia. And so immediately from day one, the African Union process was not viewed as neutral, and credible by a party to the crisis. So that is the first issue. The second issue is it is very, very difficult, and we've seen this even before in the Mengistu years. There is a tradition within the African Union that matters involving conflict in Ethiopia tend to be very, very sensitive because it's the host of the AU. So it's very difficult.
It's definitely a conversation we'll continue, especially as the talks take place in South Africa. Thank you very much, Paul. That is Paul Nantulia, who is a research specialist at the Africa Center for Strategic Studies.
Meanwhile, the first formal peace talks between the warring sides in the brutal 2-year-long conflict in Ethiopia's Tigray province has now entered into day 2. The talks are being held in South Africa and are led by the African Union. The negotiations in Pretoria follow a surge in fierce fighting in recent weeks that has alarmed the international community. It has also triggered fears for the civilians who are caught in the crossfire. The talks opened on Monday and are due to run until Sunday in the dialogue between the negotiators from the Ethiopian government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. And also the regional authorities in the war-stricken Tigray has come almost 2 months to the day since the fighting resumed, shattering a 5-month-long truce. So far, there's complete media blackout on the deliberations. However, the people who are leading this mediation efforts have now brought into question about what is unfolding in this conflict. Meanwhile, the African Union Horn of Africa envoy and the Nigerian president, former president Olusegun Obasanjo, who is the talks chief facilitator, has experienced some headwinds. Now, according to some parties who've raised their concerns with the United Nations, they feel that Obasanjo has neither inspired trust nor has satisfied the other criteria for being a mediator. Now, Obasanjo's impartiality has also been questioned by one of the parties, even calling for him to step aside. They feel that his resignation will actually help avoid unnecessary political wrangling and prevent the forum shopping and fast-track the selection of new mediators, and will commence the negotiation process on to certain more substantive issues. And this is where Kenya's ex-president Uhuru Kenyatta, of course, comes in. The former head of the state is part of the mediating team, who has received admiration from some Ethiopians who have urged him to replace his Nigerian counterpart. His office has, however, clarified that Uhuru Kenyatta has not expressed willingness to head the peace talks. Now, there is now a conundrum on the mandate of the team, considering the differences between the Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan rebels, over who are they willing to talk or listen to. Now, South Africa's ex-vice president and also a U.S. envoy, Mike Hammer, are also participating in the talks. The international community has been calling for an immediate ceasefire. Humanitarian access to Tigray has been almost virtually been completely cut off, and many people face hunger. And the withdrawal of Eritrean forces from this war in Tigray is one of the key demands of the Tigrayan people. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.
Peace is a foundation for prosperity. Peace is a foundation for a country which is aspiring to produce enough food, to secure food sufficiency in a country. Without peace, there is no way that we can realize our vision. So we're working towards peace. We are trying to convince TPLF to respect the law of the land, to respect the constitution, and to act as one state in Ethiopia. If they could understand our interest, if they could believe their own constitution and work accordingly, I think peace will be achieved. Of course, if there are lots of intervention from left and right, sometimes it's very difficult. So Ethiopians should understand we can solve our own issue by ourselves. And instead of listening from far, better to respect our own law, better to respect our own culture, better to respect our own customary. If we could do that, peace is achievable. I hope we'll achieve that. Currently in the cities that we control, like Shuri, Aksum, and Adwa, we're providing humanitarian aid. We will continue to provide them the necessary services in our capacity. The federal government in all our capacity, it's our minimum responsibility to assist and to provide services for our citizens, including Tigray. So we are trying all our best to do that. I think we will achieve that.